All right, Kentucky, it is 4 p.m., that time we come together to give you an update Monday through Thursday about what's going on in state government and how we are dealing with COVID-19. Let's start the way that we always start, or we always used to start, and we need to get back to it, is by remembering we're going to get through this pandemic, and we're going to get through it together. There's a better world on the other side of this and every other challenge we face. It's our job to build that better world and to take advantage of the possibilities and the potential that lay in front of us. All right, today on our Fast Four, we got a couple of really special things for you. First, Eastern Kentucky, little extra support in a SAMHSA grant. Kentucky Disaster Behavioral Health Response Grant has been awarded to Kentucky. The $7 million grant awarded by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration supports mitigation of the long-term behavioral health effects of natural disasters. In early 2019, many eastern Kentucky counties experienced severe storms, producing isolated tornadoes, resulting in flooding, in landslides, in mudslides, which resulted in a disaster declaration. Natural disasters can have long-term impacts on the mental health of both adults and children. We're seeing that in this pandemic too. And with this grant, we're expanding behavioral health services in 21 Appalachian counties impacted by the 2019 disasters. The grant supports expansion of evidence-based crisis services, mental health and substance abuse disorder treatment, recovery services, and many other related supports for adults and school-aged children. This is the recognition of trauma, of how the world around us can impact our mental and emotional health. And one other thing that we can learn from this crisis that we should have learned before is that these services are critical to our overall health. We are not healthy Kentuckians unless we are physically, mentally, and emotionally healthy. And we now have more tools than ever to ensure those around us are getting the help that they need. And let's remember, it's never wrong to ask for help when you need it. All right, second is our second day in a row of jobs, third day in a row of jobs announcements. Just because we're dealing with the crisis of the present doesn't mean we aren't recruiting the jobs of the future. So we've been talking this week about several good news announcements for Kentucky's manufacturing sector. Even as we fight COVID-19, we're working to secure new, well-paying jobs for our people and building that better Kentucky and building Kentucky better as we move forward. Extreme Fabrication is another company that was founded right here in the Commonwealth, operating in the Litchfield community since 2007. The metal fabricator and machine shop produces specialty parts for manufacturers across this country, with services including machining, welding, plasma and metal cutting, metal forming, and equipment repair. The company currently employs 30 people in Grayson County. With this $450,000 investment, Extreme plans to nearly double its workforce with the addition of 25 high-paying jobs over the next few years. And in a minute, we'll talk to one of our Kentucky CEOs, and I know he would tell you that once you double that first time, you start seeing more and more and more potential in front of you. This company, Extreme, is growing its customer base and was a driver behind this project. The investment will cover the purchase and installation of a CNC plasma cutting machine and traditional CNC machining equipment. Perhaps more importantly, it'll allow Extreme to diversify its business, to enter new markets, to become more resilient, which is something that we are all working on during this time. All right, so the next piece, we've been talking about it just about every day, is voting. We've talked about how this year in Kentucky, there are more options to vote than ever, which means there are fewer excuses to not vote than ever. But voting is so important, we realized that we needed to bump it up a little bit for me, and once again, we needed to bring in the boss to tell everybody how many options there are to vote.
Hi, Team Kentucky. This is First Lady Brittany Beshear. There are more ways than ever to vote in the general election this year. In fact, I turned in my ballot today at the ballot drop box here at the Franklin County Clerk's office, and it was so easy. If you have concerns about COVID-19 and voting in person, Kentuckians have until October 9th to request an absentee ballot online or through calling your county clerk's office, and until November 3rd to either drop off or postmark your ballot in the mail. Andy chose to return his absentee ballot by mail, and I chose to drop mine off at the drop box at the county clerk's office. Both options are easy, safe, and secure. Be sure to visit govoteky.com today to find important information about in-person and absentee voting options, to check your voter registration status, and to find important election deadlines so that you can make your voice heard in this election.
See, she does it much better than I do. But note all of those dates. October 5th is your last day to register. If you've never registered, you've moved, or you've had your rights restored, make sure you register before October the 5th. Last day to request an absentee ballot by that portal is October the 9th. If you're worried about COVID and therefore don't want to vote in person either early or on election day, request it now. Don't wait until October 9th because we've got to mail it out and we've got to mail it back in. 3 weeks of early in-person voting is going to start October 13th. If you're going to vote in person, vote early. It's spread out, so make a plan on which day you're going to go. That'll create less density in our polling locations, keep everybody else safer, and then every single county is going to have in-person. Most counties will have multiple locations to do in-person on election day. Again, our goal ought to be the biggest turnout that we've ever had in Kentucky because we have more options to do it, so let's make it happen. And finally, every day we're talking about people doing it right, trying to fill up this world with a little bit of positivity when we need to be encouraging people to do the right things. We talked about how Mask Up KY next week is going to become a contest. We want to encourage people. And that next week, the social media we choose, each of the individual winners for that day are going to receive Team Kentucky masks, which we hope you'll wear proudly, though those won't ensure that you win on any given day. But today, we're still showing people who are just doing it because it's the right thing. All right, let's start with the EKU Model School. We got a lot of kids that went back to in-person classes for the first time this week. And look at this kiddo. First of all, wearing his mask because our kids can do it. We as adults complain about it. Our kids can do it, and I will tell you from my kids, they are willing to do it if it means they get to go back to school. You also see a plexiglass barrier right here. It looks a little different, but I can tell you that kiddo is so excited to be in school. Remember, this is our most precious treasure. Our most important duty is to our families and to the safety of our children. So let's make sure that we not only do this right, but that we are wearing masks in our community to protect him and his teachers when they are in school. All right, the next one is the Liberty Hall Historic Site. Again, we're able to open up more things. These are going to be socially distanced tours that they're opening back up, but again, following all of the safety protocols, including wearing masks. And if you can give a tour and still convey that information, which you can wearing one, I know everybody can do what they do at their work or out in their communities with one as well. All right, this last one's pretty special. We started talking about it a little bit yesterday or the day before. This is the Salvation Army in Lexington. This is them asking if you know of anyone during this crisis in need of shelter. And we've done so much as this state to look out after each other during this. And we've truly lived out our values by trying to get people the health care, the unemployment, the EBT, which is food that they need, delivering millions of meals to seniors, making sure that our schools are still out there helping to feed children even when they're not there. Providing rental assistance, which we're doing right now. We've done so much to help each other, but there are still some people in real need. And sometimes it's those that need help the most that have the hardest time finding it during this pandemic. So please remember, whether it's a shelter, whether it's recovery assistance, people are still out there doing the work and they want to help you. And I want to publish today, and we'll do this every couple of days, a couple of resource numbers, just to make sure when you're checking in on people you care about, when you're worried about people around you, you know the numbers that you can call to help them out. Remember, we now have a bigger responsibility for each other, for everyone. Wearing our mask may prevent someone else from being harmed, may save a life, but a phone call can do that too. That was before this pandemic, and it is certainly during this pandemic that we have to be looking out for each other. And God bless all the people that provide the services that help these children and these individuals. Let's make sure we support them as well during this, whether that's through our donations, through other assistance that's needed. And let's make sure we're there for the people who need our help the most. All right, we've got a special treat today, an exciting recognition to announce. It is my great honor as the Governor of the Commonwealth of Kentucky to congratulate Lexmark International today as one of this year's recipients of the Secretary of Defense Employer Support Freedom Award. I want to welcome some special individuals who are here with us this afternoon. Kentucky Adjutant General Hal Lamberton, someone I talk to a whole lot these days, and we appreciate the job he does. Colonel retired Phil Miller, who I know also has provided a lot of government service over his career here in this Capitol, and Harry Wiley from the U.S. Department of Defense, as well as President and CEO of Lexmark, Alan Wagerman. That's what I thought. Alan and I have had an opportunity before COVID to get to know each other, and during it, talking about the practices that they are engaged in. Brigadier General David Jenkins, Carl Sullivan, and Patrick Brewer from Lexmark International. The Kentucky National Guard, as we absolutely know right now, and reserves are indispensable assets. Its soldiers are proud members of our communities throughout Kentucky. They are our neighbors. They are people that outside of COVID we sit on the bleachers with on Friday and in the pews with on Sunday. Lexmark has a long history of success and innovation in the bluegrass, and it clearly extends to the company's enlightened leadership, which supports its workers and all of our people with a strong military. Lexmark has been named a military-friendly employer for the 5th consecutive year, receiving the esteemed Gold designation for 2021. Lexmark scores exceeded the military-friendly standard in every measured category. Brigadier General Jenkins, who nominated Lexmark, said he could not maintain the high tempo demanded of his military service without the unwavering advocacy and support of his colleagues at Lexmark. I want to thank Lexmark and all of the service members and their families. Your patriotism inspires all of us. If you all can make big sacrifices for your state and country, surely right now during COVID, we can make the small sacrifices to protect you and to protect everyone throughout this Commonwealth. We see our members of the National Guard answering the call, answering it a lot right now. Surely we can also answer our own call to protect our fellow human being. Now I'd like to introduce Colonel retired Phil Miller, Kentucky State Chairman of the Department of Defense Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Governor Beshear. And on behalf of U.S. Secretary of Defense Mark Esper and the Kentucky Committee for Employer Support to the Guard and Reserve, we thank you for the opportunity to recognize Lexmark International here today with the 2020 Secretary of Defense Employer Support Freedom Award. The Freedom Award is the highest recognition given by the United States government to employers for their support of their employees who serve in the National Guard and the Reserve components. And today, Lexmark is being recognized for providing extraordinary support to Brigadier General David Jenkins' military service and to all of their National Guard and Reserve employees. Employer support is vitally important to the readiness of the National Guard and the Reserve, and their role in protecting our nation's defense and interests in critical missions overseas, strengthening our partnerships around the globe, and supporting our communities in times of great need, as we've seen during this pandemic. This year's 15 recipients, including Lexmark, were selected from more than 2,600 nominations submitted by National Guard and Reserve service members. Only 295 employers have received this award since its inception in 1996, and no employer is more deserving than Lexmark International. The active personal engagement of Lexmark CEO Alan Wagerman communicates a philosophy of support at every level, creating a culture that values, respects, and considers itself accountable for the readiness and well-being of its reservist employees. And I'd like to point out that in addition to offering National Guard and Reserve members supplemental pay for their time away from military service, the Lexmark leadership team stays in contact and provides mentorship to employees who deploy overseas. And they even go the extra mile to check on their families while they're deployed to make sure that they're being taken care of. Governor, it's without question, Lexmark represents the very best of our patriotic ideals and our employers here in Kentucky. And on behalf of Defense Secretary Esper, we are honored for you to present the 2020 Secretary of Defense Employer Support Freedom Award to Mr. Alan Walgerman, CEO of Lexmark International.
Alan is joining us up here, and first of all, Alan, until a couple years ago, no one could pronounce my last name either. Let me tell you, as a Commonwealth, we are proud. We are proud of you. We are proud of Lexmark. We are so proud of those who are serving. This is, I know, an award that is not given, it is earned, and so on behalf of a grateful Commonwealth, thank you to you, thank you to your company. And this is our COVID-friendly method of providing the award in a no-touch manner. Thank you so much, and if you'd like to say a few words, you're welcome.
So, Governor, thank you. We are honored to receive the Freedom Award from Secretary of Defense. I'd like to thank General David Jenkins here to my right for nominating Lexmark for that award, but more so for his service to our country for more than 30 years and his leadership to Lexmark for more than 23 years here at our global headquarters in Kentucky. Lexmark takes great pride in the communities we live and work, and we recognize the sacrifice that our veterans, guardsmen, and their families make to support us. So today, we are humbled to receive this award for recognition of that support. So, Governor, thank you.
Thank you for your service. I'd take a moment to also mention that we lost one of our National Guard's women here in the last couple days, and we know that the entire Guard grieves for and honors her, as does our monument, which we unveiled on Sunday at the front of the Capitol. Today, again, I wear a mask to support our schools and to get our kids back in schools. Today is Tates Creek High School in Lexington, Kentucky. We appreciate everything that they are doing. Wonderful high school. Thank you to all the administrators, staff, teachers there that are working to do it right, and to the superintendent and everybody trying to figure out the best way forward in that situation. All right, today's report is a little tough. This is the first time since March the 6th that we've had over 1,000 cases in 2 consecutive days. Today we're reporting 1,004 new cases of COVID-19. 154 of those are kids 18 years or younger, so we continue to see an increase amongst that age group. Brings our total number of cases to 68,840, and that's after every day we go through, duplicates are removed, and conduct our audit. Now, that number's hard. The positivity rate is still low, actually lower with tests that have come in at 4.07%. And so while I'm glad at that number, 1,004 cases is a problem, and it means that we have to be more vigilant. As we look at, can you bring up the stair stepper that we looked at on Monday that shows this is our cases, showing that we had the most cases we've ever had in a single week last week. And right now we are more than on track to exceed that this week. And what that shows is we are in our total case count in an escalation, meaning last week was more. This week will be more than that, it appears. And we have to continue to be committed to doing the things that are going to stop that escalation. And a lot of that are just things that we have been talking about day after day. And the challenge with having this amount of cases, and we've talked about this, is it means even as we're getting better at treating people, more cases equal more death. It's just a mathematical fact. And we can show that to you graphically too, if you can show deaths by month. What you see here is that the deaths often happen at the spikes. We saw early on, in March, when cases were spreading, it hit our people early in that first escalation. That's also when the country was learning to better treat people in the hospital for it. It tailed down as we were healthy at home, but you can see as the July cases took off, so too do, if you go back one, so too do the deaths, though they follow just a couple weeks behind. If we continue to see more cases, September is just over, being our highest month. We could very definitely see October being higher than that. So let's remember, even with a low positivity rate, more cases mean more people that are going to be in the hospital, more people that are going to be in the ICU, and more people that we're going to lose. And we need to make sure we stop this most recent escalation. How do we do that? We follow the basic guidance and rules that are out there. So today, with a little bit of editing, we're bringing back a favorite, which is the top 10 rules to defeating COVID. Number one, and it's number one for a reason, wear your mask. Wear your mask. If you are a person of faith, like me, you wear it to protect your neighbor. It's one of the most important commandments. We do it because we love our neighbor as ourselves. It's a very small test to live up to. It can just be a basic value to you, too. It can just be the right thing to do, or it could be because you realize we're in an international health pandemic and there's an aggressive virus out there, and you want to protect yourself and those around you. Number two is social distance. Even if you are wearing a mask, you want to spread out, especially when you are inside. It's not one or the other, it's both. Number three, wash your hands and surfaces frequently. 4, limit your crowds and gatherings. We cannot have big Halloween parties this year. We see COVID spreading through them and all other major gatherings. Number 5, stay home if you're sick. If you have the sniffles, if you think you have something but it's not COVID, even if you wake up and you have really bad allergies that day, you better be sure, because this thing can spread fast, and none of us want to be the person responsible for spreading it if, when we woke up, we knew we felt a way that we should stay home. 6, get tested. We're actually doing better at this than most other states. We are now over 1.459, really 1.460. We're just a couple hundred from that million tests since March the 6th. And remember, most of them weren't available before that period of time. Next, 7, answer the call. If you get called by a contact tracer, it is your duty to pick up that phone, because you may have been exposed, you may be spreading it. It is our job to make sure we protect each other, and it's your best way of knowing what your level of exposure has been and potentially getting the help that you need. And you might think you feel fine, but we've seen people who feel a little bad, and almost drop off a cliff after that. That's why we need to monitor folks that have this. 8, remember the healthy at home and healthy at work and healthy at school rules that are out there. We have to follow them. 9, prioritize your mental health. We've been at this a long time. We got to know we're strong enough, and to do that, we got to pick ourselves up at different times. We got to make sure everybody else is doing okay, but you can't take care of somebody else unless you're taking care of yourself. Spend that time, take advantage of the tools, figure out that thing that recenters you each day when you need it, and take that time for yourself. And last, with fall breaks coming up, limit your travel. Remember Florida, which is a place a lot of us have liked going to, just opened up everything to where if you go down to the beach during fall break and you go to a restaurant, we know these things spread in a packed restaurant. What you're going to do is bring COVID back with you. That's going to make it harder for your kids to be in school. So please, if you want your kids in in-person classes, you got to skip the beach vacation this fall. That's just us sacrificing for our kids. New cases by county today, 187 in Jefferson, 156 in Fayette. Whitley, 32, one of its highest numbers. It's had a number of high days. Davis, 26, Henderson, 24, Madison and Scott, 24, Warren, 22, Harlan, 20. They had that kind of big outbreak and then seemed like it was under control, people wearing masks, and now we're seeing an increase again. Kenton, 20, Knox, 18, Shelby, 18, 14 in Allen, Boone, and Oldham, 12 in Bullitt, Laurel, and Rowan. A couple days in a row where Rowan's had some real high cases. 11 in Jessamine and McCracken, 10 in Campbell, Hardin, and Lincoln counties. And just saw the news today that Lincoln County has a couple hundred of its students in quarantine. What that means is that they identified cases. They did the right thing. This shows that it's certainly in that community, so please, on the public school side, monitor that carefully. Just be transparent and do the right things, and that appears to be exactly what is happening. Today, I'm sad to report we've also lost 4 additional Kentuckians, an 87-year-old man from Fayette, a 74-year-old man from Jefferson, an 86-year-old man from Bullitt, and a 70-year-old man from Christian. We have a number of others that are still going through our process. Sadly, we're waiting to get information back, but I think we'll see in the coming days that this can impact even younger adults. Long-term care facilities, 65 new residents, 41 new staff, 15 new deaths attributable. And this is an area where we have significantly increased testing, and it's going to increase even more with the rapid tests that the White House is providing. This is the area that certainly people are most vulnerable to the worst results. But let's remember that we don't just judge COVID by its number of deaths. We see some people who seem to have symptoms, some from the very beginning, even 6 months after. We've seen later complications in some kids, and we still don't know so much about this virus. It would be short-sighted for us to think that it's simply like the flu and you have it and it's gone and there's nothing else that impacts anyone else. Let's be humble enough to know what we don't know and make sure that we are approaching this that way. Kentucky child care facilities, 10 new facilities with at least 1 positive test, 7 new staff, 6 new children. K through 12 schools. Again, this is not the instant dashboard, which you can now get on. You can get on today. This is our audited process. 41 new students, 34 new faculty and staff, 30 new schools on that report. In colleges and universities, again, this one goes up, it seems like a lot every day. 119 students. That means active cases, 1 short of 1,500 in the Commonwealth. 2 more faculty and staff, 2 more schools that have some level or have at least 1 case that's been associated with it. One last set of announcements before we answer questions, and that's on lost wage assistance. That is that extra $400 for those that qualify that we have been approved now for 6 full weeks. Remember, the federal government did set certain requirements about what you were already receiving if you were going to get on top of this. So it's not just everybody that files for unemployment qualifies for it. So our first 3 weeks of payments already out, already to those individuals. The fourth payment went out last night. The fifth should go out on the 1st, and the sixth payment is going out, if everything goes as plans, on October the 5th. So fourth week last night, fifth week ought to go out on 10/1, sixth week ought to go out on 10/5. And for those that ask why it doesn't all just go at the same time, it's because this is the way the federal government does it. This is the way we have to do it under the FEMA grant. It's all getting out there. When we look at lost wage assistance for the first 4 weeks, they were sent out August 1st, August 8th, August 15th, and these are the weeks that were included. It was for the week of August 1st, 8th, 15th, and 22nd. That's where that $600 cut off at the end of July, and these were the extra. For that week of 8/1, 114,026 Kentuckians received the extra $400. For the week of August 8th, 108,759 Kentuckians received that extra. For the week of 8/15, 108,446 received it. And for the week of the 22nd, 108,028 received it. And the reason those numbers are different is not everybody was unemployed for each and every one of those weeks. Quick update on Ernst & Young, E&Y, providing us with invaluable help. The processing activity as of yesterday, number of written determinations that they've now been able to help with, at least 996. Those are those 2-page letters that are the most time intensive that we need to get done so that people, if they qualify for pandemic, can move over to it after being denied regular, or they can start their appeal. Total number of written determinations sorted to date, which they're working on, 10,273. That's for EY. And based on detection date in our reports that we get, the issues supported by EY processors were predominantly related to initial claims filed in May. So that's a brief update on where that is. So again today, a lot of information, some exciting information about Eastern Kentucky grants, new jobs here in the Commonwealth, opportunity to recognize Lexmark for its amazing service, which it's provided to the Commonwealth during COVID-19 too, but also the way that it ensures that our guardsmen and women have the opportunity to serve. And my favorite thing that I heard is looking out after the families when people are deployed. That's pretty special. But then the COVID report is it's too high. 2 days over 1,000. This is not where we ever wanted to be in Kentucky. So I need your help. I need your help. I don't know what it takes for us to all have a wake-up call, because most of us don't need it. We're doing the right thing, but I need your help. There's certainly reports of fewer masks in our supermarkets. Please put them on. We talked and praised those that work in those facilities as frontline workers when we didn't know what was going to be on the shelf. But if we're not wearing one right now, we're not honoring that service by protecting them. Remember, for retailers, no shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service. Do not check individuals out in a retail establishment unless they're wearing a mask. And make sure we keep gatherings in people's homes to under 10. And if you are inside, put on that mask, even if you're 6 feet apart. If you're outside, make sure you are at least 6 feet apart. We need your help. Our kids are counting on us to get back to school. Our economy is counting on us to make sure we can continue to rebound. But it's up to us, and we have got to get this done. All right, we've got a semi-packed house today. I know I started on the left yesterday, so we'll start over here today with Joe. By the way, Joe, you move from left to right, and it works pretty well. All right.
Far below the 72,000 included in yesterday's report. What is happening
The question is on the number of tests as we report per day are sometimes like a lot of the other pieces of data. They don't come in evenly at different times, and each day we're trying to find every lab that is out there doing any type of testing, and if they haven't been reporting, to get them to report not just for that day but for everything. We have different labs that perform more tests in our state if they're not in our state on different days, so there's a lot of variables that are in there. So some days we will have 13,000 tests that come in, some days we'll have 70,000. Now on those days it can be in part because of the time of the week that it's at. It can be in part because that national lab did a whole big bunch of them in that. It can be a new lab that's come online that hasn't reported all of its negatives to us that we want to get in. Now the most consistent thing that we can do is apply that data as we get it, but it certainly gives us a better idea when we are getting more of this data about where that positivity rate is. And it is a system where I believe we are getting good, accurate data that we can base our decisions off of, but data on something like COVID will never be perfect because it's so new. There are also so many different types of tests out there too, and that's another way that it's coming in. We have different research studies that are being done in Kentucky, and we're getting those studies. The federal government is doing one too, and we're getting those in as well. So now there are a real positive. So many different ways that you can get tested. There's no excuse, but it also means we have big kind of peaks and valleys in the number of tests that come in, but who'd ever thought that 13,000 tests in a day would look like a valley? It does make us better prepared. Tom?
You mentioned briefly earlier about the large Halloween gatherings. Do you have the trick-or-treat guidance ready yet?
Our trick-or-treat guidance is coming out tomorrow, and we're going to walk through it, and I think we're even going to provide some pictures here because we want people to get a good idea of what we'll be asking for. But again, no big parties, no big block parties, no big parties of kids coming together. You're going to see that it's going to need to be individual families taking their kids out to trick-or-treat, and then we're going to ask the way it's done at the door to be done a little differently too. But we think we have a reasonably safe, remember, if you don't trick-or-treat at all, it's safer in a time of COVID, but a reasonably safe way that people can have, the kids can have a lot of the experience, that those at the house can perhaps even watch the kids, but we avoid the direct interaction where you're leaning over, the child, and providing the candy directly. So I think we'll have a way that I hope everybody buys into, knows it's done a little differently this year, but if we take just a few extra precautions, those kids that are dressed up so well will be safer when they come to our door. Grace?
Yes.
Welcome.
You remember?
I do.
I just want to give a shout out to my team.
Grace giving a shout out to St. Louis Cardinals.
My question.
Did the Reds win?
In Louisville yesterday, they talked about having to drop the case numbers in half in order to get kids close to coming back to school. That seems like a really big ticket thing. What do you say about that statewide, sir?
Questions about Jefferson County, and I think they talked yesterday about needing to cut their COVID numbers almost in half to get back to in-person classes. First, I want to support Jefferson County and decisions that they are making. Jefferson County faces additional complexities that many other counties don't have to look at, the level of transportation, and a number of other complications, the age of their buildings, which I know is something that we've been trying to, they've been trying to address. It's a major capital intensive issue that they're facing. So I certainly want to be supportive of where they think they set their benchmarks. For the rest of the state, I believe that most areas are going to be in a position, as long as they're flexible, again, from week to week, to do some level of in-person class. But we have to understand what that could mean is Frankfort Independent is doing right now, because they're in Orange, is doing 2 hours, 1 day a week, at least for their middle school students. I know that one. In others, it's people going 2 days and a different group going 2 other days, and they may be in the yellow, where that would be more appropriate. So this is one where it's a battle we fight every day and every week against COVID, and our response in our schools is going to have to be that fluid as well. But when we look at our incident map, we do have a number of counties in yellow, which we think can do some version of in-person classes, and some in orange where we believe you can do limited pod type learning. So I know it's everybody is trying to work through it. I believe that we have the right guidance. Our hope is that people will follow that guidance as much as they can. And I should say, this makes it safer. Again, during COVID, we got to make sure we don't tell people something is totally safe. So if your child has significant pre-existing conditions that could be impacted by COVID, you may want to think, no matter where you are, about staying virtual. Our schools need to make sure that they are providing all of the types of classes virtually if that's happening as well. I know of at least one school district where there are kids that fall in that category that are having to go back because they're not doing their AP classes virtually. We need to make sure that that doesn't happen to any of our students.
This is for you and Secretary Freelander. We're doing a story on the free and reduced lunch programs. How do you feel that the districts are handling getting needed necessities to students who are still NTI?
I believe we have Secretary Freelander. Is he here? Okay, the question is on free and reduced lunch and getting meals to our kiddos, especially when they're doing NTI.
Getting meals to kids who are in NTI. So the 2 ways that we're doing that I know of. One is talked about the pandemic EBT. Those cards should be going out very soon. Those days that children are in NTI and those districts and schools are in NTI, there's a specific amount allocated for meals that will be loaded on all those cards. We just sent the file to the folks that send out the cards for 627,000 students just this weekend. So we hope that will be coming to them and those cards will be coming to those parents this month. The other way is through family resource centers. A lot of the family resource centers and a lot of the school nutrition programs outside of the Health and Family Services cabinet have been doing and going to great lengths to make sure children, particularly in those children that are in areas where they maybe have more difficulty with transportation, may have less access to food, are providing some of those meals and going around, and I know they were doing this particularly in the summertime, going around and making sure that those families and those children had meals. I think I've talked about our senior meals program where we've delivered more than 2 million meals. I don't have that number for meals for children, but I can certainly try to get that. Thank you.
One day we don't have the Lieutenant Governor who would have that right at her fingertips. Catherine?
Insurance. We continue to hear from people who are waiting weeks and months to receive their benefits. What's your message to them, and why does this continue to be an issue so far into the pandemic?
The question is about people who are still waiting for their benefits, and why is it still an issue? It's still an issue because the federal government hasn't changed the overall laws related to unemployment that create an incredibly difficult path to qualifying. It hadn't changed because rebuilding an unemployment office in the midst of a pandemic and creating a new system in the midst of a pandemic, our electronic system is 21 years old. Also challenging. I do believe that performance from our group has gotten significantly better. We have our numbers in March down to a point where we think most all of those claims have a significant issue that may prevent any form of payment, either not qualified or others. Our April numbers also significantly down, but May and June, there's still a bunch. Again, I think this is the perfect storm of a support system that was neglected and cut. Offices closed, 95 individuals, jobs pulled out of it. And I will tell you, it is a challenge in the midst of a pandemic to rebuild something that was torn down. But we're not allowed to have excuses. We got to be there for people. So I'll tell you that we will keep working. We will keep reaching out to folks. I just got numbers on numbers of calls we get versus number of calls we're able to return and talk to people. That is up significantly since early on in the pandemic, but we'll work to do better each and every day. When we look at areas where people have needed help during this pandemic, there are some where I think we have exceeded expectations, Medicaid, food, and others, and there are some where we have to do better, and during a pandemic, everybody needs all that help. So I tell people that we are working hard. We are doing our best. I know that's not enough if you're waiting, but we will get to you, and we will communicate better. We will keep working every day to try to provide the level of services that you deserve, and we'll get there.
What's your thoughts on last night's presidential debate? There was a decent amount discussed about election security, so I think you might have something to say about that, but just in general, where are your thoughts at with what happened last night?
The question is my thoughts on last night's presidential debate. And as I try to answer this question, Joe will interrupt me 45 times. Last night wasn't a debate. And it's really unfortunate because it's supposed to be a way for people to provide information during it. I remember I was one of the last people to be in a debate where there are significant interruptions. And my hope is that the format can be changed. And I will tell you that during the governor's election, we asked numerous times if moderators would agree to turn off mics when necessary. I think that they're going to have to look at that to do better going forward. At least one thing said in that debate, though, that absolutely needs to be clarified is that there will be no general public going into polling stations to watch other people vote. That is not legal in Kentucky. In Kentucky, you're only allowed to be in that polling location if you are a worker, if you are a kid going with that active voter, or if you are a certified challenger under state law. That's KRS 117-315. To do that, you have to be registered. You get training. Again, that is statutorily required. Challengers may never intimidate or harass any voter. That is against the law. And challengers may be ordered out of polling places if they are not doing the right thing. So no person other than election officers, challengers, persons assisting voters, there's some voters that need that help to get in, or those minors with their parents are allowed in that voting room. It is against the law to otherwise be there. So listen, you can't be doing that. Also, don't try to vote twice. I know that's been said too. That is against the law as well. We should be careful not to be spreading or not to be suggesting unlawful activity to people. We are elected officials that are elected through this process, and we have a duty to advise people on the right things to do in the process.
First of all, the Braves walked it off in the bottom of the 13th, 1-0. There you go. You mentioned about the voter registration deadline coming up, and I know that the ACLU and some other folks are working on getting everyone whose rights are restored, getting them to register to vote. Is this an ongoing process? Has someone's sentence completed, they automatically have their rights restored, or are you having to issue more executive orders as time goes on?
Make sure I do that in a COVID appropriate way. The question is on voter restoration and how the executive order works. The way the executive order works is every individual that qualifies, that committed a nonviolent, non-sexual offense, and these are all felonies, because you only lose your right to vote if you've committed a felony. Every time someone who falls into that category, nonviolent, non-sexual offense, completes their entire sentence, goes through their probation and the rest. Now, they don't have to have paid off all the fines. That doesn't keep anybody from getting it back. Their rights are automatically restored. Our database is automatically updated, and they can go in to register to vote. So if you've completed your full sentence on October the 4th, you can still register on October the 5th. I know we were over 190,000 Kentuckians the other day, and that's one of my proudest moments as governor and as a Kentuckian, knowing that lots of people make mistakes. My faith certainly teaches forgiveness, and I believe in voting. And I believe voting provides a certain amount of dignity and integration into society, and it's just one other way where I think we're telling people that you can fully rebuild your life, rebuild your family, and that tomorrow can be better than yesterday. Grace.
Governor, you talked this week particularly about this plateau, that we're stepping off the plateau and starting to escalate in cases. What are you willing to do, and at what point are you willing to do it to kind of really get a reversal on this, because it does seem like it's trending?
Question is, what will it take with this escalation for us to have new steps that we would take? We need to watch it a little longer, because we have a lot of other factors at issue right now. We have a lot of other guidance that's out there. For instance, the school guidance changes the level of activity that's going on in a community based on increasing numbers. Visitation guidance for our long-term care facilities also now changes based on that. So we have more almost automated guidance that changes different things in different communities based on that spread. And the White House certainly looks at both number of cases, kind of their incident rate, as well as the positivity rate. And so in one, we're in the red, number of cases, and in one, we're in the yellow or the orange, because they added orange like we did. And so certainly if we are in the red on both, we have to take a more careful look at the steps that we take. Now, I think that there's also something to be said about steps I'm not taking, which we're seeing in states like Florida and even some of our bordering states, where at a time when they still have more cases than we do and their positivity rate is higher, they are removing almost any and all of the rules that are out there to help us. At some point, we got to make value decisions. Do we value having 100% capacity in certain places, or do we value trying to get our kids back into school? And right now, those are the value decisions that we're making.
Governor, do you have any plans to add any more in-person UI appointments, especially like the satellite programs, or are we at the case where those aren't helpful?
The question is on UI, satellite, in-person. The answer is we're working on it. Our challenge is our people right now are more efficient, getting through more claims on a daily basis when they're in the office in Frankfurt or wherever they go than when they're in the in-person. In-person obviously makes people feel better, and it should, because you get to talk to a human being and they get to explain it a little bit better. But we're trying to get through the most cases to help the most people at the moment. We are working on a plan to try to open up those career centers, and that's for a number of things, and get back to at least that level of regional offices. What we can't do is pull the trigger on that at a time where it causes us to fall further behind with the number of claims that are coming in. And so we get closer to that each week that we have fewer claims that are filed, because right now we're trying to get the old claims done, and we're also trying not to fall behind on the new claims. It continues to be a real challenge. Now, there are things that the federal government could do that would help us. and that is to give us the help we need to make sure this recession is as short as possible and that we rebound as quickly as we can. There is still, to my knowledge, no progress on another CARES Act. There is still no additional funding putting out for states and local governments. That spending is some of the most important, and they can show it mathematically to help us to come back faster from this recession. What it will cause if they don't do it is cuts in state government, which then cycle through the economy. We also haven't seen them come in and continue this unemployment program. You know, the president did that through an executive order, and we've seen those dollars. When it was $600, it was actually going through our economy pretty well for our budget, for our businesses, for retail, for restaurants, and that needs to be done as well. We've got schools that we've been told by everybody in the federal government, for the most part, that they want us to reopen. They haven't come through with the extra money that they said that they were going to. I mean, the fact is that the federal government right now in those instances is failing by not coming to an agreement on those necessary funding. And I mean, if in a pandemic we can't sit down with each other without throwing insults or coming to basic agreement when people need help the most, that's pretty sad. And I think that says that we're going to have to change our outlooks on a number of things, but also what we expect from people on a regular basis and what we expect from people in an emergency. All right, I have one written question to close us out, and then it's from Fox Sports, wondering about a statement on NASCAR removing its NASCAR races from the Speedway in 2021. Obviously, it is a great disappointment. That is an incredible event. I'm personally disappointed because I worked with NASCAR to become one of the first locations that they could race in after the suspension for COVID. I certainly hope that they reconsider that this is a 1 year or even less change. That Speedway is an important economic driver to not only that area of Kentucky, but all Kentucky. And hey, our Kentuckians enjoy going to those races. So we're going to do everything we can on our end to encourage a return. Also want to get more information on the whys. We've certainly been investing tens of millions of dollars, if not more, in infrastructure over the years to support that track. And it'd be pretty disappointing that we make all of those investments to support one of these races and that we not have it in the future. All right, I want to thank everybody, but I also want to ask you to do your duty. More than 1,000 cases, 2 days in a row, is not something we can be complacent about. It is not something we can be willing to accept. It is not a new normal that we can say is tolerable here in the Commonwealth. It's something we have to do better in. And we want to make sure in this battle that we don't go through multiple losing days. And that's what having over 1,000 cases feels like. And remember, those whose future we're writing right now are counting on us. And much of our history, as we look back, is going to be how we came together to respond to this virus. Kentucky has led the nation in so many ways, in so many positive ways. Let's not drop the ball now. So we'll see you tomorrow at 4.